phone, I would just howl all day. It wouldn't stop.
I think of the guy, he gave me the number to call downstairs. It was out at 9 o'clock. He goes, oh, I can't, my employees,
Everybody knows them. Thanks for coming out. We're very excited to have Dr. Joel Fuhrman will be joining us probably in about 10 minutes. GreenFare after a full day up in Columbia, Maryland, so thank you.
Well, what a pleasure to be here. I've always wanted to come here, spend some time here, maybe eat here. I won't get a chance to do that tonight, but I'll be close to it and good to see Gwen again. The bell is relatively narrow, and the diminishing of the healthy life expectancy curve, which normally occurs in the last 10 years of life in Americans, where the last 10 years of their life is like a living hell. They don't have their mental faculties, they're refined so they can't move around good, they have pains. Well, that doesn't occur until the very end of life. So you really get not just 20 years of extra life, but at least 30 years of active, fully mentally aware, fully physically functioning good life. We're talking about the term healthy life expectancy. It doesn't mean just how long you're going to live. It means how healthy you're going to be as you live longer. Okay? So here it is. The most proven methodology to slow aging and to live longer is moderate caloric restriction in an environment of micronutrient excellence. That's the term you have to memorize and understand what that means. Now, you have great exposure. We can't like eat tons of kale, but then be B12 and zinc deficient and expect to have a good long lifespan. It can't be just eating kale. If you're deficient in any important nutrient, you're going to interfere with your life in some important way. Desiring to overeat anymore. And if you don't meet micronutrient adequacy, and your diet is nutritionally poor, then you can't stop overeating calories. That's impossible to control your cravings and to not become overweight. All right? Giving you the olive oil eaten lime, what if I just mix the 1 tablespoon of olive oil into the food, into the salad, into the vegetable dish, so you didn't even know it was there? Then how would that affect how many calories you consume when the scientists weighed the food and figured out how much calories you consume? When you're eating foods that are empty calories with no significant micronutrient load, it has a lot of effect on you. It makes you overeat food, it makes you want to eat more calories, but it also creates metabolic waste in the body. It doesn't supply those nutrients. When you don't take your nutrients with the calories you're consuming, your body's going to build up more waste product in response to consuming and metabolizing those calories. So you bought a food that accelerated your aging, made you gain weight, and now every bite you take of that food, and to the extent that you eat that food in your life, you're shortening your life. You're shutting down your potential lifespan when you eat empty calorie foods. 150 less at the meal. You ate 200 less at the meal, but later on you didn't realize you got 150 in. So it moderately and naturally made you caloric restrict. Did you follow that? Like beans do. You know, beans have the most resistant starch of any carbohydrate food you can eat. So there's no corresponding insulin response. So that's how fast the glucose came in. So what I'm saying is, the resistant starch in beans have the most slowly digestible starches, and the most resistant starch is as well. And the word resistant starch means resistant to enzymatic degradation, which means the body doesn't break down those starches into calories. It does break them down to calories, but it can't break them down by digestive enzymes. They have to be fermented by bacteria in the gut. But that fermentation wasn't, and now you're saying, recently they told us, the CDC said 71% of Americans are overweight or obese.
Yes, sir.
So keep in mind, that's not what I would say as the overweight or obese portion of America, because that's what the CDC says. Because they base it on the demarcation of 25, and I'm saying that all the blue zones and all the centenarians, all the longer populations, have BMIs below 23, and for women actually it's below 22, but in any case, we're talking about that they're considering people that are overweight still in the normal weight category. It's not optimal health. When we use 23 as the demarcation line for overweight, then we get 89% of Americans are overweight, okay? Sugar products regularly. Their brains are affected negatively too. They just don't meet the criteria for major depressive episodes. And they have what's called a dysthymic syndrome. Because when you're eating processed foods, it's lowering your mood, lowering your creativity, lowering your excitement about life, and lowering your emotional health. Because they're addictive substances. So even when you're not depressed, it's still affecting your emotions and your mental outlook on life. And because they make you want to eat food, more food and more food, your life becomes directed to craving and making sure your excessive food needs are met. It feels so bad, they got to stop detoxifying by having you could feel better from your caffeine withdrawal, have another cup of coffee. You could feel better from your cocaine withdrawal, take another snort of cocaine. You could feel better from your cigarette withdrawal by going out and having another smoke of cigarette, and you could feel better from your hypoglycemia, which is nitrogen withdrawal, just by having another piece of turkey. Or just keep eating food all the time. So the worse your dietary quality, the more you're driven to overeat calories. This is why I'm teaching you why diets don't work and why people can't lose weight, because they're not addressing their dietary quality. And without addressing the dietary quality, they're doomed to fail on diets because the desire to overeat and to feel fatigued and wiped out if you don't keep putting food in is too overwhelming for them to handle. And they feel depressed when they don't eat food as well. Or at least this time. Of diet being hormonally favorable. It's not enough your diet is nutrient dense. It also has to be hormonally favorable. Now, if I'm overweight, my diet can't be hormonally favorable. Fat on the body automatically makes your diet not hormonally favorable because fat cells produce estrogen. And you have excess estrogen circulating. Estrogen increases risk of prostate cancer and breast cancer. And your diet can't be hormonally favorable if you're overweight because fat on the body makes you insulin resistant. So now you have a heightened insulin response to any carbohydrate you eat. So should you eat a mango, you might have a high insulin response, whereas I eat the mango, I don't need much insulin. Because when you're overweight, the more you gain weight, the more the body has to produce insulin, higher levels of insulin, to make it work in the cells because fat coating the tissues prevents the insulin from working. You got to produce more and more insulin to get the glucose out of the blood from that mango. So is very powerfully angiogenesis promoting. And the word angiogenesis means to spark the growth of new blood vessels. Because fat can't grow unless blood vessels are growing into the fat cells. They're living tissue and it needs a profusion of oxygen and nutrients to make the fat, enable the fat to grow. When you enable fat to grow, you enable cancer to grow too. Because cancerous cells, by definition, secrete a huge amount of angiogenesis promoters and need a tremendous blood supply that they can grow and spread and grow too fast and metastasize. But certain foods you eat, like mushrooms and onions and green vegetables and berries and even beans, have anti-angiogenic effects, anti-fat storage effects. So it's not just the amount of calories, it's just not restricted calories, it's also the right foods interfere with the growth of fat on your body and accelerate the removal of fat. Beans have a mild, because mushrooms have a mild carcinogen called the garotine that rolls off the cookie. And the two raw foods are like scallion or onion or leek, and raw green vegetables are the combination that thickens the microbiome the most. I have as to they can really keep the anti-cancer foods coming in. They've been running a study with Northern Arizona University with thousands of women called the Nutritarian Women's Health Study. Thousands of women who agreed to eat the G-bombs every day so we can track the fact they're protected against breast cancer because they eat these high anti-cancer foods. Sugar drives IGF-1 up, but not as much as animal protein does. And animal protein drives insulin up, but people see up in honey, those foods don't. But animal protein is the primary driver of IGF-1. And IGF-1 is another growth hormone that promotes angiogenesis, accelerates growth of tissue, and can promote the growth of cellular replication in cancer. And the average American, because they eat so much animal protein, has IGF-1 levels in the dangerous level between 250 and 300, the average American. Whereas the average, in the studies, why would eating animal protein in particular, like beef or chicken or fish or egg whites, why would animal protein in particular be so lifespan shortening and cancer promoting? whereas eating more plant protein, high protein plant foods like edamame and tempeh and hemp seeds and Mediterranean pine nuts and broccoli and black beans and navy beans. And why do these high protein? Because these plant proteins like navy beans, edamame, and hemp seeds have much more protein than a hamburger does. We're talking about, foods or Mediterranean pine nuts, so we're talking about some real high protein plant foods, especially when we combine them in a meal. Why are these high protein plant foods lead to longer lifespan, whereas the high protein animal foods will lead to shorter lifespan, even if the protein content of the animal product is lower?
Phytonutrients.
Maybe.
Cholesterol.
No.
Thyroid.
No. It's true what you're saying. It's true that plant proteins are packaged with fiber and phytonutrients and antioxidants. They're in a healthy package. Yeah, you're making a good point. Why the plant protein is more healthy and less dangerous or unhealthy, but why it raises IGF-1 has to do with the biological completeness of the protein. Because when you eat an animal product, all those proteins are absorbed relatively quickly, and they're relatively quickly biologically complete. So the body has to make a decision what to do with that protein. It has to burn it for energy on the spot, store it as fat, which the body is very inefficient, or turn it into a product the body needs like hormones, or excrete it in the urine, or urea. What I'm saying is when excess protein enters the bloodstream, you're always going to form an excess amount of growth-promoting hormones. You don't see that happening when you eat excess amount of plant protein. Because even if you overeat on hemp seeds and broccoli and tempeh, the protein is not biologically complete, and it enters the bloodstream more slowly. Because it's not biologically complete, it's not ready to make the hormone. The body has to get it ready to make the hormone. It can't make the hormone from biologically incomplete protein, so it has to make the protein biologically complete. And the body has the ability to make the incomplete proteins complete. The worst possible thing you could do, which is why I said on PBS, I said this diet's been designed by Al Qaeda. the one food most healthy. The answer is leafy green vegetables. Collards, kale, watercress, arugula. Okay, you got that, right? Let's go to you guys.
Every morning.
What's the food that's most powerfully associated with lower rates of cancer, the strongest effect to wipe out cancer, including genetically susceptible cancers like the GSTP1 gene, like Angelina Jolie has for breast cancer, that these foods wipe out the possibility of those, they prevent those genes from being activated. What's the most powerful food that stops breast cancer from occurring in the body? No, it's green vegetables. It's cruciferous green leafy vegetables. So they both got that wrong. But let's try this one. What is the food most closely associated in scientific studies with lower rates of heart attacks and strokes? Right!
Raleigh or Durham or Chapel Hill, I mean, 0 local